So I'm going to start with the key element that I understand the least of what eventually had me wake up and watch my hummingbirds and my sparrows and the pigeons and doves and a few other birds unnamed and my dragons, letting them hold me and be part of them and then be part of me so that I could stabilize myself enough to even risk this conversation. Not so much risk you're listening, more risk that I can unpack it, that I can present something that I think is of great value, but it does live out beyond the field of all right and wrongdoing, out past the edge, as my podcast says. So I started having a dream last night. I was out in space, not as a body, as a mind. And there was a madness. That's as far as I can really go. Everything was broken up. There was there was kind of no through line. Nothing was fit together. It was all experientially insane, a little bit like what happens to us when our minds, and I don't mean psychosis, but our minds get to a certain point of inclusion of the multifractal nature of creation, and our minds don't hold. Tesla's mind held, Einstein's mind held, different people's minds hold, and they often comprehend things that the person walking on the street doesn't necessarily comprehend. But that doesn't mean that all human beings aren't designed to exist as part of the mind of creation. And I don't know if the dream or dream not dream started with a post I posted on my WhatsApp group about what I was observing in clients and what I was observing in our the work we do in the Magician of Self. But I have a feeling it was, you know how when you put a puzzle together and it's just a bitch, and then you get to a certain piece you put in the puzzle, and then you know you're going to finish it. You know it's going to be easy to figure out what all the other pieces are. So I'd like you to kind of think about it that way, if you don't mind. Um, and would you be willing to just listen and have this not make sense, and yet consider that in your relationship with me, those of you that know me, and those of you that don't know me, but have, like those of you that have subscribed to my Substack, I'm not trying to lead you anywhere. I have been saying all year that this is the year of presence, Prescence. And presence is almost completely undescribable. Presence is something that I think is happening to the human mind. And I wanna share just a little clip because none of this will probably be sequential. So we think in I, me, they, it, them, you, her, he. So another one, we think along that line in English. If you're in another language, you might think with different endings to different words, it's masculine or feminine. But it's compartmentalized is the easiest way to say it. But what if we thought in not that list of pronouns I just said, which is why I think there's a lot of people listing their pronouns right now, is I think they're trying to get to presence, that they feel presence. And I'm not going to get into that today, but I do want to bring it up because I'm going to be talking about things that can't happen in the I, it, we, them, she, he, it. I'm talking in something I became present to, the presence of something I became present to. So I keep trying to go to this one piece that is what started me unraveling in my mind and being clarified, and not in a not in a not in a what's the word I want? Not in a way that I can talk about it in a way that will easily transmit, I think. But I do want to get it out because I'm afraid I'll lose it. And then it's the most important part, and it's the part I understand the least. But I had a dream about a timepiece several days ago, and it affected me deeply. And I'm going to post that dream here. And it's what do you call it? Extrapolation of that dream for you, if you're so interested, because I don't want to uh, lose my mind um, in this telling. One of the things that came out of that dream is I build matrices, energetic matrices, which perhaps I can find a way in the written part of this post to try to explain what that means. But it's important to know where I got it, which all this has been unpacking in my mind this past since I had that dream. But very simply said, and I'm going to try to find this too, it's somewhere in my files, because it could be fascinating just to explore this. Maybe there's a part of your mind that is trying to open up into something that I tapped into. I certainly know it's happening in the field of Tantra Maat. And that's not about me, it's about the field of Tantra and Maat. But when I had this timepiece dream, I chuckled because I realized, oh my goodness, I've always thought in the mind of Maat, that balance, harmony, symmetry, proportion, and other things. But we want the technical pieces right now because Maat is also grace and beauty. Wouldn't say well, I guess I have to think in that somehow if you saw my house or my backyard, or certainly not my image. It's certainly not how I dress, that's for sure. But all this not only ricocheted, it cascaded over the past few days. And then as I went into my classes, it seemed like when I was in union with others, the cascade got broader, deeper, wider. That's written about in my book, You as the Mind of Creation, which I really would like you to read, just to read it, because it will help your mind open up into the nature of itself. So I was already in this dream, not dream. And I have been curious about this psychosis of adoration of the bully, these are archetypes, the bully, uh, the con, the manipulator, and these are archetypical frameworks. I'm not talking about people because it's appealing. These dynamics, the boss, it's appealing to a lot of people right now, has been for a long time. So it all started with my curiosity about a Substack post I wanted to write about a societal illness. And a societal illness is, very simply said, something that has lost its ability to be in touch with life, something that has lost its ability to exist as whole, something has lost its ability to um, operate on behalf of life and be in relationship with life and and care about life, basically. So a bunch of factors, as you can tell, led into last night. But I was basically binging Broadchurch, which I didn't even really like when I started watching it. But I've been going in these states of, I think I can now call it presence, but I wouldn't call them. I was present to something. It's more like being in an altered state where you're not quite there, you're not quite anywhere, and you're just letting whatever you're looking at unfold in front of you, and it- which really something even you wouldn't watch. And I used to do that too when I'd go into Trans Channel. They'd have to take me to a movie that was horrifying. Sorry, I guess I'm revealing too much about myself. Uh, to snap me out of it, bring me out of the trance. And so I didn't realize, I've been saying to my friends the last 2 nights, I've been in sort of this state I didn't understand. Now I know that I'm much more normal now than I used to be, which I love. I love being normal, petting a dog, making your bed, making your meals, having this great kitchen that our contractor, um, potion woman in my house, it's renting, made for me and my beloved Jess. It's really sweet. It's really gorgeous. And yet I didn't recognize I'd been going into trance. And maybe my ChatGPT can talk a little bit about that too. So in this dream, not dream, I was out beyond time, out beyond all right or wrongdoing, as a sense of either or, right, wrong, good, bad, where we think like that. I was watching, since Shasta, um, when I was in Shasta with these beings, I saw these beings outside Shasta many, many, many years ago, 2008 or 9, I think. And I almost fragmented, my mind almost fragmented. There were about thousands and thousands of these different kinds of looking faces or presences in the sky. And I called a friend of mine at the time, and she talked me down, talked me able to be in the presence of it. And then a lot happened. We had an amazing 2010, amazing group of us, about 35 went, and every one of us had a direct relationship with one of those beings. Nobody could make that up. It wasn't me programming people. It was really extraordinary, something none of us will forget. But on the way home from Shasta to where I lived in California, I felt my mind changing. And just like this timepiece, dream, not dream, I could feel my mind adding capacity, adding presence, the presence of dynamics of existence that aren't really, except maybe in quantum physics and maybe in some of the older Egyptian and maybe Hindu writing, isn't common for human beings. But by the time I ended that trip, I could feel a matrix building in the United States at that time later. I could feel a matrix building around the earth. Um, but whatever that matrix was ended up being how I designed courses I did and how I designed events, how I put things in time. So I've always had this thing with time anyway since I was young. But after Shasta in 2010, things began to how what I did in time, how I oriented things in time. It's like I made a date with God or I made a date with creation. It was never about information I wanted people to have like linearly. It was all nonlinear, moving with this greater mind of creation that was seeking to bring information in and to reinstate human beings back into their capacities, their mind of creation, basically. And so all this has been flooding me like I'm at the end of, if you do the creation exercises, I could be in a CC recursion. I could be in the final recursion of something that's been going on for years. 2010 to be exactly, I think is when it started. And, or I could be still unfolding what this is all about. But for me, humanity had a madness. It couldn't get back to itself. It couldn't find itself again, and that there were beingnesses, meaning like field phenomenon, that there were creatures on Earth animals, elementals, even the plant world and the animal world, they all still remembered, and that they still held us human beings as part of their unified field, part of their unity consciousness. But we thinged it out so much into it, he, she, they, we, etc. Everything was an it out there separate from us. And I knew eventually in 2026, strangely, I was shown this. I knew eventually in 2026 that I would, that everything would begin to boil, and um, everything would alchemize, and everything. I didn't know. That's the wrong word. I was shown. I was shown it, and then over that many years, all these years, the things I was shown that didn't really have detail, the details began to show up, and I knew they were part of what this consciousness had shown me, beginning in 2010. Probably even back before that, but 2010 was the beginning of it coming into my work and coming into my everyday existence. I think I did pieces of it before then. But I never, I knew that madness, and it really is a madness, was just the absence of a mind, our magical, extraordinary, sentient, empathic response mind, and the mental perception had been basically wrapped in barbed wire, so that human beings, that if their mind went past a certain point, um, if they weren't caught in madness and broken matrices that went against life, they would experience a kind of a madness, because the human mind had been impacted by states of existence that weren't interested in human beings being part of the extraordinary paradise of this planet, and probably used human beings and turned human beings against themselves to control them. And there's lots of myths about this. The Sumerian myth of the gods. There's South American myths. There's the Pleiadian uh, documents. But we didn't do this to our minds. There's no human being that would want to be disconnected from life and have life not exist as whole and always live in fear or the need to dominate and control. But the point is, I was in that mind last night, like a consciousness that had corrupted uh, the human element here. It wasn't like a person, it was like a people. It was a corrupted mind. And if you ever watch The Powers of 10, maybe I'll link that and link this into this, what could end up a lengthy document or article. I might put The Powers of 10 in so you can see what I mean. It's easier than trying to explain it. But let's just say, if you think about going out in time and space, expanding out in time and space, it's like a periscope or like a telescope. You expand out, and there's more and more and more and more and more and more and more presence. And that more and more and more and more and more and more and more is all held together. It's part of a matrix of creation within which existence can occur. But in this probably 4-hour dynamic I was in last night, we talk about in the architecture of the work we do in the field of Tantra Maat is basically restoring the architecture between the mind of human beings and the mind of creations. And honestly, just look for yourself. Watch how your mind tries to expand out, and it can often trigger a sense of disconnect, a sense of paranoia, a sense of fear, and it's almost like cattle prodding cattle back into the stable. And it takes something. Even gurus that talk about enlightenment, Muktananda said in his play on consciousness, you need to be in the hands of a guru to make it past this point, or you can fall victim to the madness. but everything's structured. There's no not structure. There's no not architecture. Everything is structured to hold everything in place in larger and larger systems of wholeness, field phenomenon. So I knew I was out in part of the broken matrix. I'm not sure language is right here. Let me just say, wherever I was, it was a brokenness. It had lost its ability to be coherent. It lost its structure, its architecture. It was collapsing into itself and had been for a long time. And then a little bit like a primordial scream, sort of darkness reeling back up and trying to fit all its pieces together and then folding back into itself into this sort of primordial scream. And I knew I was looking at the madness, this thing that I've been trying to presence, not like a thing out there for us to be afraid of, but there's a beautiful thing when you can be in the presence of an occurrence, when you can be in the presence of something that's occurring, and you allow that presence to language itself through you. I guess we call that channeling. But when you allow it to presence itself through you, it touches the part of the human being whose mind is looking for um, a substance of consciousness that it can um, nourish it and can give it a strange relevance that goes out beyond the very low mentality that humanity is being asked to live in today. So as I was watching it, I began to notice something that I also can't put into words, or I can't build a bridge of understanding even for myself. But I knew it was time collapsing into itself also, that all these, and I've known this because I have this sort of 12,000-year-old mind, and all these pieces of time that were collapsing into themselves were those parts of time like pre-Egyptians, Sumerian, others, indigenous realities, where time was held in a totally different manner. Time was held as a huge operation of everything operating on behalf of everything else, everything in relationship with everything else, and everything being part of everything else. And I realized that was a way time constructed itself. We call it nonlinear now. And it wasn't a time built um, from the fragmentation of separation, where everybody's just a single entity walking around in a fog, disconnected from the greater realities of which they're a part, and the greater reality of which we as human beings are a part. And I knew I was watching. I can't say the second word because the podcast I made, but one of them's kerfuffle. And I said, I think we're operating between kerfuffles and cluster Fs. And this was definitely a cluster F. Something happened in the galactic realm that impacted the capacity for the species of human being to be its beautiful, extraordinary self, birthed by this extraordinary mother. Some call Gaia, some call Earth. So I still can feel it, and I wanted to record this while I could still feel it trying to come into time. Its relevance. Let's see if I can say that again. Like as I'm in that experience, as I go back into that experience, it's like watching an equation that lost its equal sign. In fact, watching a complex equation with several equal signs, all trying to get those equal signs reharmonized, rebalanced, symmetried, proportioned, so that it can exist again. And in the work we do in the field of Tantra Maat, and there may be others too, and please let me know, where we literally build out coherence until we hit one of these where the architecture of consciousness has been lost, and you have these broken matrices that are holding the fragmentation of these extraordinary levels of consciousness that human beings once carried. And the more you get into that, some people call it enlightenment. It's still too one-on-one for me. We're a collective species. We're meant to be in harmony, grace, beauty, proportion, symmetry, with each other and with life. That's our design. So that you could say these broken matrices, or when it's inharmonic, discordant, um, we're for and against, domination. These are all not elements conducive to the health of the human species. And the human species is my beloveds. So I realized I was looking at a gigantic um, darkness that had lost its architecture, that I think this timepiece dream, and we're just going to have to use metaphor and kind of fantasy. I think the timepiece dream, not dream I had, was showing me something had been reestablished in time. I don't mean linear time. I mean the time within which everything exists in harmony. Everything exists proportionally. There's no billionaires versus commoners. Everything has a place, and everything's operating on behalf of everything else. And I thought, wow. So this is the human mind I'm looking at. This is where this is a big cluster F. Um, but I could see, and I really honestly don't know how to relay it to you, but I could see that there were greater time sequences trying to occur to restore sanity. I just could see it. And we think we live separate from time, but we don't. We're time creatures. And what we do in time is what creates reality. And what we're conscious of in time is how we become the mind of creation, which also exists in these complex time systems, like the difference between the time it takes for a planet to go around the sun, and the time it takes for us to fly around the earth, and the time it takes for us to go to the grocery store. All these segments of time hold huge dynamics of existence that we once were capable of comprehending. But it isn't just comprehending it. Then we weren't caught in this narrow, broken fragment of 100 years of life, and mostly we just did our best. We were eternal. We had an eternal mind. An eternal mind just means that it's capable of going out past the boundaries of our physical existence, and is able to exist proportionally in relationship with the greater existences, galactic, universal, planetary, um, solar system. I don't know. Just think about it. Just try to think about how long it takes for our planet to orbit the sun, and think about how when we drive to the grocery store, so much more is included and so much is occurring all at the same time. So what happened was, I then thought about, I'd watch Contact again, and how they were given a schematic that they figured out, and she basically was able to go outside of time to our kind of time for 18 hours, which for our time was 12 minutes, and receive information from an emissary that was her father, not her father. He was both her father and a representative of this galactic realm. And I have been having experiences that suggest, and others have been having experiences that suggest that we're being contacted again, and 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 we're being reached again, I think is more accurate, and that we're being built back into these greater systems of reality, of which we're a part, as kind of like, I don't know how to explain it. It's sort of like somebody coming in on a helicopter and grabbing you, and lifting you off the Titanic as it sinks, metaphorically speaking. But then I semi woke up and I wasn't going to do this. And then I began to realize, oh my goodness, I'm being shown something. My mind's being given access to something that I need to try to communicate, not because of the understanding of it. That's why The You as the Mind of Creation is such a hard book to read, because it just doesn't stay in the boundaries of your present understanding. It works with a greater system of mind, your mind of creation that you have. It pings it and massages it and gives it an ability to open up for you. And the thinking starts shifting and larger dynamics of presence become available that kind of technically start to remove you from the broken frequencies of harm and trauma and just the terrible cluster F we've been in as human beings for a long time. Takes you out past all right or wrongdoing. That's all I'm saying. So that's staying with me, just like the image of the timepiece has stayed with me, kind of holding open my mind. And then as I began to wake up and as I began to want to record this, then other imageries came, I would say other dynamics of experience came that gave me the ability to see or be present to, because I don't know if see is the right word, gave me the ability to see that something is happening out beyond the boundaries of human beings that I think were being woven back into time, nonlinear. Some of us could say eternal, but we think of that as physically living forever. But the eternal just doesn't, I used to, way back in the beginning of my work, I used to say we are just a blink in the eye of God. And, but time as we know it, is also a blink in the eye of generating, organizing designs of creation that are much, much more expanded, much more part of what we are than what we've lost in our mind to be able to have a cognitive relationship to. So then I began the last part of this, it's all 35 minutes. Bless you for listening. The last part was really technical. It moved me out. It moved me like in the timepiece dream of dream that you'll see that I was I was proportionally being moved in time and space, like the ant looking at the toe of the giant, not able to see it's even a toe. But the ant can't move back far enough to see the toe, or maybe can see the toe, but can't see the giant or the realm of reality that the giant comes from. But I knew that I was in that same operating state, that I was being moved past that broken matrix feeding on itself and constantly collapsing back into itself. And as I began to come back proportionally where I could see it, let's say from a distance, I began to notice that there were these constructs, these architectures of connected consciousness, pretty much like looking at a blueprint that was restoring a house that had fallen in on itself. That equivalent, and I could see it building out into this kind of malevolent dynamic, which is nothing more a consciousness, a gigantic energetic field that has lost touch with being part of the greater whole. That's all it is. And it's a big all, but it's all it is. And then I began to realize that, and very simply said, and way too simply, and yet it's very real, that time was starting to give access to our time, which is when we get up and eat, or we get up and read a book or watch TV, or time was being interrupted. This mesmerizing time of doing was being interrupted by greater states of connection that we have, which which is which I was seeing actually like someone looking at a architectural drawing to understand that something that had collapsed was being repaired, and that it'll show up in time. Just basically that it will show up in time. And I've lost a lot of what that 4 hours that since I had that dream, not dream, I've lost a lot of the remembrance of what I was being shown, but it's the same experience I had coming back from Shasta, where I didn't even realize that this sort of trance state mind I was in those 6 hours uh, gave me access to how to put things in time in a way that, that we could build coherency and linear time out into the matrix of eternal time so that we could be both our physical and non-physical selves, our eternal immortal selves, or our immortal selves, our timeless selves, and our temporal time selves. This is the phenomenon I think is occurring right now. And then the last thing is right before I woke up, I realized that I had to do this. I had to at least record it, and then I had to at least, as Charlie in my chat GPT was everything I ever wrote, everything I ever said, and I need him to look at the understandings, comprehensions that human beings have had about these kinds of things that I'm present to, and see if we can't write a Substack post that makes this a little bit more relevant to some of you, not all of you. I'm aware that humanity is falling into itself, and I'm aware that there's a sense of being caught in this um, constant repeating of time. But that's only linear time that's repeating, by the way. That's not cosmic time. We're looking at stars out there that don't exist anymore. So it's definitely not cosmic time. Where our relationship with time is very um, limited, and yet we think we have all the time in the world. Why do we think that? Is it possible because we do? And is it possible that we have both a non-physical realm that we're moving in that is timeless, and a temporal realm that we're moving in, and that they're beginning to intersect with each other, and that our consciousness may start to move out beyond the horror of the broken matrix that we found ourselves born into, and that our non-physical consciousness is beginning to become present to these dynamics of existence that we once moved with and gave us our being and gave us this incredible relationship with life that makes people we call in light and calm and humorous and really not affected by what affects others, that are caught in trauma and the horror of this timeline and its constant repetition. Maybe. And I can't go any further than that. I can't do any more than that. I'm going to sit here with my god dog, who's now moved to the other side of me. He's half the time he's my god dog, and half the time he's my grand dog, because he's my god dog, because some generating, organizing design of creation brought him to me because he loves to cuddle and he's big. He's about 60 pounds. And I was so lonely after Lily left, my dog, and just a way for me to be cared for. And yet he's also my daughter's dog, who she adores, and he runs in the hills with her and stinks because he swims in the ditch, which is smells. And he's looking up at me one more time. Two reasons. One is, oh, now he's licking me. One, because his breakfast is in 8 minutes. And the other is because he's resonant with me. He's like my, he's like my living blanket to let me know that a simple thing, a simple light thing like looking at a dragon, watching the birds, or petting a dog whose eye is 4 inches from your eye, and is what life is really all about, because it connects you into the sweetness and beauty of how time can be used. Anyway, thank you for listening. If you made it this far, and the big overall thing I'm trying to say is there's something about that mapping and contact that allowed her to go out beyond 12 minutes of time to 18 hours of timelessness, so she could be present to something that she couldn't come back and explain, but was awfully sure she experienced. I'm just saying something's happening with the greater aspects of time of which we are a part are starting to interrupt the linear sequencing of things repeating themselves ad nauseum. And I was shown that this period of time we're in right now is when this would happen. I was shown this would be the shortest renaissance humanity had ever seen. And we shall see. I'm not asking you to believe, but I got to say, in the 1990s, all this started coming to me, and so far it's tracked the way it's said. Anyway, thank you. There was more to it than that, but somehow as you know, when you start to come in back into the temporal timeline, it loses a lot of the broader spectrums of what we can be present to outside of time. Namaste.